All right, this video covers the Unit 6 portion of the final covering exponents. And before we get into any of these examples, I want to just talk about the very generic rules of properties of exponents. Okay, so if I have anything to the 0 power, that will give me 1. If I have something raised to a power and I am multiplying that with the same base and a different power, I'm going to end up adding the exponents. Okay, likewise, if I was dividing with the same base, I would end up subtracting those exponents. Let's say I raised a power to another power. This is now different than what we had up here, so we're not going to add, but instead we're going to multiply those exponents, n times m. And lastly, if I have anything to the negative exponent, so like a to the negative n, I'm going to go ahead and flip that down to the bottom and make this 1 over a to the n. Likewise, if I had, let's say, a negative exponent in the denominator, so like 1 over a to the negative n, you're going to flip that to the opposite side, and that's going to become a to the positive n in the numerator. So now that we have our basic properties kind of laid out here, we can go ahead and go and do our examples for this section. So looking off at number 1, I've got 4x to the third times 2x to the 7th. So I can go ahead and multiply this 4 and this 2 together, and that will give me 8. And then I can also multiply x to the third and x to the 7th. If you forget your properties, I always say when in doubt, expand it out. So that means I have 3 exponents, or sorry, 3 x's, and then I also have 7 x's. So in total, how many x's do I have? I should have 10 total x's if I count all of those up. Okay, so our final answer is going to be 8x to the 10th power. All right, moving on, number 2. Number 2's got a lot of exponents with negatives. So every time you see a negative exponent, you want to flip it to the opposite side. So we'll start with d to the negative 8. That's going to go down to the bottom. This c to the negative third, that's going to come up to the top. And lastly, I've got d to the negative 6th. That's going to go up to the top. So let's go ahead and rewrite these. When you move it to the other side, they become positive. Okay, so my c to the 6th is going to just stay there on top. But it's also going to be joined with a c to the third power. We also are going to move that d to the 6th up top. Again, once we move it, it becomes positive. And then in the denominator, I'm going to move that d to the 8th power. Okay, now I can go ahead and combine my stuff. So right here I have c to the 6th times c to the 3rd power, which if I would combine those together, that would give me c to the 9th power. I still have d to the 6th and d to the 8th. Now I can kind of look at this portion. I've got my d's on top of each other. So when I'm dividing with the same base, I end up subtracting those exponents. So for my final answer, that c to the 9th stays there, but then I have 6 minus 8, which gives me negative 2. Now, for your most simplified answer, we don't want negative exponents, so I'm going to move that to the opposite side. Move that down in the bottom of my fraction. So our final answer will be c to the 9th divided by d to the 2nd power. Okay, number 3. All right, always look at the most inside part of those parentheses first. Can I simplify anything inside of that? The answer is no. So then you've got a power raised to a power, which means this power is being distributed to everything on the inside, even the thing in the denominator. So now I've got 4 to the 3rd power. I've got x to the 3rd raised to the 3rd power, so I'm multiplying those. So that becomes 9. And in the denominator, I will have 5 to the 3rd power. Okay, and I can simplify this one step further. 4 to the third power gives me 64, and 5 to the third power gives me 125. So this would be your final answer, simplified form. Number 4. Number 4, I've got a negative exponent. This negative exponent's got to go to the opposite side. This will become 1 over 10 squared. And we can simplify 10 squared to give us 1 over 100. And last but not least, in the exponent section, we've got a power raised to a power, and we also are multiplying. So I'm going to start with that power raised to a power here. If I have anything, and I mean anything, raised to the 0 power, what is it going to be? 1, right? So let's go ahead and rewrite this to be just 1. That's being multiplied by t to the 5th. If I were to multiply those together, I end up with just t to the 5th power. And that will be all, folks, for your Unit 6 exponent review for your final exam. These 5 questions will be very similar to the 5 questions on your final. I would highly recommend studying all of these 5 problems and rewatching this video if you need to, or come in and get some extra help. Good luck studying.